Hi there, my name is Kimberly Gildsberg, and I'm here today with Jennifer Denton, Ann Person, and Latonia Robinson to do a BSN presentation on directing nurse management through delegation. Delegation can be defined as the act of getting work done through others or as directing the performance of one or more people to accomplish organizational goals. This has to do with teamwork. Delegation is something that is very important in the growing healthcare field because it can balance care throughout all spectrums. On this slide, you can actually see the American Nursing Association, of the ANA, is stating the 5 rights to delegation. You probably learned a little bit about this in nursing school. They did touch on delegation a bit, but until you're actually in practice and you see how everyone works together and how different personalities are and different levels of education are, you really don't understand the impact of delegation and how important it is. You have your license to watch out for. So delegation and choosing the right person, the task, the circumstance, giving correct direction or communication, and providing the right supervision all has to do with correct delegating. Here you can actually see a little picture represented by the letter A, which stands for assessment, which is actually the first part of the nursing process and perhaps the most important. When we think of assessment, we think of assessing the patient. But not only do we have to assess the patient, we have to assess everyone that's taking care of that patient. It's your license that these people are practicing under, so it's important that you protect it. And this has to do with choosing the right person for the job. Some people may not understand certain aspects of care, so it's important to recognize this and train your team appropriately. On this slide, you actually see I'm giving you some statistics about nursing shortages. As of 2022, nurse employment needs will be increased by 20.2%. This has to do with a lot of the baby boomers getting older and needing care for chronic illness as far as like just gerontological purposes. You'll see number of nurse jobs will grow from 2.86 to 3.44 million jobs. That's a huge jump. That equals 1.13 million, a difference of 1.13 million nurses that are going to be needed. This also equals out to an increased need for ancillary staffing. So as ancillary staff grows and nursing demand grows, the need for delegation becomes even more important because this can allow us to take care of the patients, but also to kind of balance the work so that we don't have nurse burnout and people that are overwhelmed. With this growth, it's important to have a team around you that can take part in the care. On this slide, you can actually see some important details about delegation. Employment of nursing assistants and orderlies is projected to grow 17% from 2014 to 2024. Understanding delegation responsibilities is imperative to improve patient outcomes. Delegation can help to build trusting relationships. It can also help to provide necessary training that can create effective delegation among team members. Balancing the workload through delegation can free time for management to focus on planning and organization, which is very important. Overall, the most important thing to remember is delegation balances the workload for nurses. It establishes open communication through delegation, and it establishes trust amongst team members. Initiative and skill growth can be enhanced through delegation practices. So it's important, as you can see, delegation is super important with helping your department run smoothly and preventing burnout amongst nurses and managers.
Hi, my name is Ann Pearson, and today I'm going to talk about strategies in delegation. In order to be productive and efficient in completing a task, it is very important you trust those that you do work with. There are 9 different strategies that can be used to have effective teamwork and that are important for productivity and efficiency. The first one we're going to look at is to plan ahead. Assess the situation before it becomes overwhelming, and make sure that you clearly establish a plan of action at the beginning of every shift. That way it clearly delineates the outcomes that you're looking for. Everybody needs to be on the same level. This way your tasks can be completed properly as long as everybody is working on the same level. Also, what you need to do is know your state regulations. You need to know what each state has and the definite delegation. What can you and cannot delegate? LPNs, CNAs, and nurses are all different, so each one of their tasks to be delegated would be different. What you got to practice within your scope of practice. And like I said too, is with the LPN CNAs, as their scope of practice and even RNs are all different, they need to practice within their own scope of practice. The degree of supervision for each task as well. Do they need to be supervised on a task? Is it something that they can do on their own? This also decreases the risk when it comes to delegation for each person. The next one is selecting capable personnel. It is important to select the proper personnel to increase the ability for them to learn and grow. You want delegation to be able to grow people that you're working with, let them trust you a little bit more. You also want to work with motivators and risk takers. You want somebody to be able to want to learn, want to grow, not just always stay in their same bubble. That way being able to delegate a task will be a lot easier. And that everybody agrees that the task delegations are very important, that everybody works together as a team. The next thing I'm going to talk about is communicate goals. It is important to be clear and to identify any limitations that may affect the delegation. Also, you want to include a purpose and be specific on how to obtain those goals, which is very important between CNAs, LPNs, RNs. We want to make sure we're providing the correct communication when it comes to delegating, and everybody understands what is going on at that time. What you want to do is empower your delegate as well. Provide them all the necessary resources that they do need, as well as increase their accountability. Let them be accountable for what they do, as well as support any decision making that they may have. You also want to listen to what they feel is right. The next one is you want to set deadlines as well as monitor progress of what the tasks are being delegated, because you do not want something if you delegate something and it ends up not being done, we need to find out why and what's going on. At that point, you want to have some meetings, work together. If we're talking about nurses and CNAs, you want to check in with them throughout the day or throughout the shift night to see if everybody's on the same page still and everything is properly delegated and all the tasks that are being delegated are properly done. You also want to be productive, and that runs with meeting up with team members to make sure everything is working the progress is working as it should be. You also want to keep track of the progress, because if certain things are being delegated and it's not getting done, we want to make sure we talk about why it's not being done and what we can do to make it more efficient. And finally, like I say, we want to promote communication. We want to be able to speak to each other and not just assume everything is going to get done when it doesn't always get done. So communication is, once again, a big key in delegation. Next, you want to provide guidance. Show confidence and encouragement for those who've been taking on the task. Be available, be a role model, and if someone's having difficulty with the task, be encouraging, answer questions that they may have, and find an alternative solution in order to have the task completed properly. What you also need to do is find that balance in order to obtain the desired outcome in the task that is being delegated. What you also want to do is evaluate the performance of the person. Always provide feedback so they can either be encouraged to what they're doing correctly, or can there be changes in what can be done. If changes need to be made, what does that person themselves feel like they can do in order to make the necessary changes, or what could they have done differently to improve the task that was being delegated? And finally, you want to always reward for accomplishments, either through recognitions for individual people or even for your whole team. You can reward the team. I know where I work, sometimes we buy each other pizza in order to give ourselves little rewards in order to encourage more efficient tasks and to be able to work better as a team.
Tanya Robinson, and today I will be just talking about delegation as a function of professional nursing. Nursing, with the restructuring of the healthcare model for today, nurses are increasingly expected to supervise different levels of employees. Nurses are asked to assume the roles of supervisors. However, they need preparation, training to assume that task. And to do that, nursing schools and healthcare organizations as a whole should do a better job in training nurses for the role of delegator. This also involves educating nurses on the 5 rights to delegation, which was discussed earlier in the presentation. Healthcare also needs to, needs to assume a role as support and the new nurse that's new at delegating, and offer teamwork with other team members of the floor to help this. When delegating to staff who are unlicensed, you always have to always remember the 5 rights of delegation. That's the most important thing you have to consider. You have to know what their job description is. You are delegating an assignment may be outside their job description, and they may not know how to do it. And that also falls along with the knowledge base. These people may not be trained with certain areas of delegate, what you want them to do. And it's your license on the line, so you need to feel comfortable that they have the skills that's needed for their task. I touched upon licensure. These folks don't have any license, so it's not their license on the line. It's yours as the RN who bears the legal liability that these people work under. And you also have to put yourself in their situations when being assigned a task to make sure that you're not giving anything that could be considered demeaning or insulting. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Denton, and today I'm going to talk to you about transcultural delegating. The book mentioned 6 cultural phenomena. The first one we're going to talk about is communication, the use of body language, the context of speech, eye movement, a dialect. These things all add up to communication, and I'm sure there's more, but the book just mentions these. So when an example would be, you want to make sure that you maybe a softer tone given to non-important delegation tasks, or some may perceive a softer tone as being a non-important task. So you kind of want to see how reaction is to it and get to know each other and kind of go from there, as some people perceive things differently. Space, which means the distance and intimacy techniques when related verbal and nonverbal. You want to make sure you're giving people their personal space. You don't want to be right up in their business. When you're discussing things, some people don't mind, and touch is their language, and so they got to get close. But if that's not your thing, just let them know and be sensitive to that. Don't think, well, they just don't like me, and that type of thing. Social organization is the third one, which means is the importance of a group or unit in providing social support. This is the values may differ in each employee, in each person. So be careful when you're giving them critical tasks that they may or may not be able to handle within their own ethnic or culture or value. The other 3 cultural phenomena are time, environmental control, and the biological variations. So let's talk about time. You have past, present, and future. Some people are working in the past and have past goals in mind as far as don't want any change, don't handle change well. So we need to be careful when we're giving them tasks. Maybe explain to them what the importance is, why we're going to be changing it up, what we're doing. Present is things that we're doing now, now oriented things that we're doing, and then future is like, let's think ahead of the game. Let's see how we can better help our patients by maybe changing things up, researching some things. So we're just going to remember that in the delegation, some people are kind of stuck in the past way of doing things, and we need to kind of explain to them why we're doing it as we go along, not just telling them to go ahead and do it. Environment and control is a person's perspective over his control or his environment. Some people believe in fate and luck, and it's bad luck to do this, and it's, oh, fate, this is what happened and everything. So we just want to be mindful of that and be sensitive. But this may have an impact on what you ask them to do. They may not want to do something because they may believe that it causes them bad luck in their life. I personally haven't had this experience, but I'm sure there's people who have, and I would be interested to hear some examples of that. But just keep in mind that, as we're floating from floors to floors, or we're picking up, that there might be people who do have this idea or a way of thinking, so be sensitive to it. Biological variances is there's difference in the ethnical and racial groups. I know working on some floors, I've noticed that sometimes there's cliques, and you find one person helping one person more than the other, and that may be because maybe you've done something in the past that have offended them somehow. So my suggestion would be go to them and say, have I offended you? Is there something that I could have done differently? I think we can all learn from this. In conclusion, we have talked about several different things. The 5 rights of the American Nurses Association. So the right task, the right circumstance, the right person, the communication, the right direct communication, and the level of supervision. So in the previous slides from my teammates here, we've talked about not giving the task to an unlicensed person or delegating them to do something that's not within their scope. So I know it's not easy to always remember in the back of your head when we're trying to rush and do things and be proactive in things, that we need to keep these in mind. Is it the right person? Did I give that person the right task? Was I direct in my communication? Did I speak clearly? Did I keep their sensitivity and their culture in mind? Did I not? You got to be really sensitive with it, so it's hard. So important to be clear communication. Like I said earlier, if you've offended somebody, maybe just go to them and find out, what you could have done differently, and learn from it. That's all we can do. But the RNs, or your registered nurses, bear the ultimate responsibility of our patients. Yes, the certified nurse assistants, or PCTs, however you may call them at your facility, are there to assist us and help us, but it's our responsibility as nurses to make sure those have been followed through and done correctly and safely for the patient, because it will come back to us. So you want to make sure you know your CNA or your PCT very well, and that you have that clear communication. Make sure you're being sensitive culturally and ethnically to them. Some have religious beliefs that they don't do things. We want to make sure that we are, also thinking of that person along as well as the patient. Maybe we shouldn't pair the CNA and the patient up together because there's, maybe they're butting heads over something, and it's not part of their belief or something. So we just need to be sensitive to that. And remember, we're all on the same team. We're all striving to do the best for our patients and do it safely but efficiently. So I hope you've learned something from our delegation videos, and good luck.